Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, October 27th, 2016. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com.
Did you mess with my levels over there?
I just lowered the theme
don't
for
want
everyone.
to blow out people's speakers.
Yeah, exactly. As awesome as the theme is. Hey, everybody, it's Norm here, hosting this week's episode. And joining me, Jeremy Williams.
What's up?
It's a duocast this week, just the two of us. I know I really wanted to get Will in this week, but he was unavailable. So it's just the two of us. We were recording on Thursday. Hopefully you guys will get to listen to this episode on Thursday. I'm going to rush home afterward and process the podcast. We didn't want to record too early because we did that last week, and we missed out on like half the week's news.
It happens.
To talk about. It sometimes happens.
By the way,
sometimes
Kishore wanted to be here too.
He did.
But he's very busy with the Tested Live show, among other things.
The whole Bay Area Science Festival is on his capable shoulders. It's happening this weekend, which is a perfect time for us to advertise the live show. We're going to be on stage this Saturday. If you're in the Bay Area, we really want you to come.
If you're not, we want you to come.
And if you're not, we want you to come as well. There are still some tickets available. We promise it's going to be an amazing show. We're going to talk about some of the food segment parts of it at the end in the VR minute. But I am amped. I am pumped. Maybe not as pumped as Panos Panay from Microsoft, but I'm still pumped for Saturday evening. It's our annual check-in with you guys to see you in person. And if you're not in the Bay Area or not going to be able to make it to the live show, you'll be able to watch some of that footage afterward, especially the Tested Premium people. Last year, we put out the whole show as one 90-minute video, and so we're going to do that this year as well. So tickets are on testedjourneys.eventbrite.com, or just go to Eventbrite or bayareascience.org. You can find all the information there. Really hope to see you, but let's talk about pop culture.
Not too much time in this segment today. There's
I
a
know.
lot of tech to talk about.
I was listening to that intro and me saying pop culture news and so relaxed. I'm not relaxed at all today. There's so much to go. The first bit of pop culture news, we saw this just announced today. There's a little bit of a switcheroo for movie releases. Two highly anticipated Pixar releases. What's going on, Jeremy?
Well, are you more excited about Toy Story 4 or The Incredibles 2?
I am way more excited for Incredibles 2.
Hey, me too. You're in luck because that has been moved up. It's now coming out in 2018. And Toy Story 4 has switched places with it. It's coming out in 2019 now.
Wow. Toy Story 4, that's the one that Rashida Jones is working on writing. The one that, I think in terms of movies that we ask ourselves, did we really need?
Well, I think Disney asked themselves that question. They have a different answer than everyone else.
Well, their answer is yes.
Yeah.
Where these sacks need to be filled with cash.
Right.
We have a warehouse full of sacks, and we want to convert it to 10 warehouses full of cash.
How else can we
How
get
can
all
we
the
do
money?
it? Lasseter, add those numerals after your movies.
And hey, I'm glad he's directing it because I'm the guy who wasn't a huge fan of Toy Story 3, and I know I'm in the minority, but it was just a little too dark for me, and I'm excited to see what he comes up with. I'm happy to give him another year.
Okay. You think it's more in the writing or the directing, or
Who can say?
Yeah, we don't know.
At this phase, we know nothing.
Both these movies are directed by the original directors of the first movies. So Toy Story being done by
Yes.
John Lasseter, Incredibles 2 being done by Brad Bird, of course, did the first one. He's done so many movies since.
Yes, mostly live action though.
That's right. Yeah. He went to Tomorrowland. and
Mission
he's
Impossible.
Back, Mission Impossible, and now back again. So maybe his sensibilities have changed a little bit. We'd love to see how these characters have been percolating in his head in the years.
So good.
Right? I think Finding Dory really proved that even 10 years later, you can make a relevant sequel and not feel like a cash grab.
Although you can also grab cash because Finding Dory has entered the $1 billion club.
Is it in the 1 billion club? Does it
Yep.
join the ranks of Alice in Wonderland and
Of animated films, Toy Story
and
3.
Frozen?
Toy Story 3 was the first one to do it. They were the first movie cartoon to cross that barrier. And then Frozen did.
Frozen's the highest grossing animated movie of all time.
Yes, now that is. But Minions, believe it or not, is in the $1 billion club.
Lowest common denominator.
But so, I mean, first of all, Brad Bird, in my mind, when it comes to animation, can do no wrong. And I can't wait to see Incredibles 2. Incredibles is still probably my favorite Pixar film.
Wow. We're not going to get into that debate. There is simply no time to do that. But please let us know in the comments which one is your favorite Pixar film and whether we needed a
Toy Story 4?
A Toy Story 4, a cash
5,
grab. It's such an
6,
obvious cash grab,
7.
creative cash grab.
When does it end?
Who knows? Who knows? Another movies that we're looking for. Have you bought your Rogue One tickets yet?
Can you?
I believe you can.
No.
A housemate asked me yesterday if I had bought mine. I'm like, what? I was on an airplane. I don't know.
What? They went on sale this week?
They might have gone on sale this week. I want to know because I want to buy. I'm looking forward to Rogue One.
Me too.
And I want to see if I can buy tickets for opening weekend in IMAX. I don't know if I'm going to watch it twice like I did Force Awakens. Force Awakens was only 1 year ago.
You are going to watch it
that.
twice.
It feels like many years ago.
Dude, you're going to
be
be
saturated.
You're going to be saying, "Oh, it's only been 1 year since the last Star Wars movie." Forever now.
Right.
Every single year, that's what you're going to say.
Yeah. Well, they did make some casting announcements since the last time we podcasted for not Rogue One, but the next Star Wars story. These are the anthology standalone stories that are coming out in between your episodes 7, 8, and 9. The one after Rogue One is the Han Solo origin story.
So 2 years after Rogue One.
2 years after Rogue One, after Episode 8 comes out. And this one is directed by the duo that did the Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street, the creative team. I believe Chris Miller, Phil Lord. They already had cast their young Han Solo, who's the guy that was in the Coen Brothers movie, Hail Caesar. And you should watch that movie, Hail Caesar, because he's great in it. And you can totally see Han Solo coming out of that character, even though he has a funny accent.
I haven't seen that movie yet. It's at the very top of my must-watch list.
The movie itself, overall, is okay. He's really great in it.
Okay.
Donald Glover has been announced as a young Lando Calrissian.
My man, he can do no wrong.
I think it was perfect. I think we speculated years ago when they were talking about these Star Wars anthology movies that maybe Donald Glover would be great as like a Lando's son. But even better that he's actually playing Lando.
Have you watched Atlanta?
I have not seen Atlanta yet. I know it was highly recommended by
Highly
both
recommended.
Will and Adam.
Yes, it breaks a lot of conventions. It's a really good show, and he's fantastic.
All right, now recommended by 3 of you guys, so I gotta watch it. All right, that's the casting news. Good news for Star Wars, but maybe not so good news next for Star Trek Discovery, which we've talked about.
That's the new show?
That's the new Star Trek show, the one that's going to be on CBS All Access, that was going to be set in the original non-J.J. Abrams universe, not the Kelvin universe. That just lost the strongest creative force behind it, Brian Fuller, the showrunner.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the report, and this is from Variety, is that he wrote the first 2 scripts for Discovery and did the whole broader story arc, which is good, but he will not be showrunning it on a day-to-day basis.
Can you define showrunner for those of us who don't live in Hollywood?
So a showrunner, and showrunner does so many, it's basically the person in charge creatively of the entire show, of the whole writing staff, of breaking down the episodes, as opposed to a producer who works on just budgets. The showrunner works with the producers to make the shows happen, but has the creative vision for the show.
Kind of like the dad of the show, like the show dad.
Or show mom, yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. And Brian Fuller currently working on a couple other projects, American Gods for Stars, which is well on its way. That's the Neil Gaiman book being adapted into a miniseries. And also an NBC project, Amazing Stories, as a reboot. So he just couldn't stretch himself too thin. He did Hannibal, of course. So I don't know, part of me is bummed, because I wish he was creatively invested enough that he wanted to do it.
Does this bode badly, though? I mean, was it heading in a direction that he didn't like?
Well, we didn't know. I mean, it didn't sound that way. It doesn't sound that way.
Right.
This report doesn't indicate whether it was a splitting because of creative differences or if it was a breakup because just of scheduling and just not having enough time. But even if it's the latter, which is like the best possible scenario, given that he's already left this project, it's still disappointing that he didn't have the creative energies to say, okay, I'm going to put these other projects aside because I want to do Star Trek.
I suppose so. I don't know, man. I have never been excited for this show based on what I've seen of it and based on the fact that they're putting it on their streaming service. It's possible that the show's so good that they think it'll sell subscriptions to their service.
For CBS All Access, along with Big Bang Theory archives.
Or it's not good enough to be on regular TV. So I don't know. We'll see what it's like.
I don't think it's not about it not being good enough for regular TV. I think it's about the audience potentially not being there on network television, which is what CBS has. If it was NBC, they could say, let's put it on Sci-Fi, but put money there because you have shows that on Sci-Fi that have big budgets and don't need network-style audiences because they're not selling ads in the same way. And also you can creatively maybe have a little more freedom on a digital show only. It's not just because it's a subscription-based show like from Netflix or Hulu or Amazon or even CBS doesn't mean that it's not going to get the budget and attention it deserves.
Hope it's great.
Yeah. There were more creative differences that did lead the split up from a director and movie recently, and that's, of course, the Deadpool movie. Did you hear about this?
Nope.
Did you see Deadpool?
Nope.
Oh,
It's R-rated.
Jeremy, I think you're old enough to watch an R-rated movie these days. You don't need to bring your parents.
Isn't it like the most successful R-rated film of all time?
It may be. It's definitely the most successful superhero R-rated film.
Okay.
But I don't know. You may be right there, which is astounding. I think successful based on its return as in relation to how much it costs. I believe it costs about $50 million to make, and it's made several times that over, maybe over 10 times that. So the director of Deadpool, and I want to get his name. I want to say it's Tim Miller. Tim Miller left Deadpool 2 and over creative differences with Ryan Reynolds. And the rumor report is that it's because he wanted to make a much bigger conventional superhero action movie that would cost 3 times as much.
Huh.
And Ryan Reynolds wanted to keep it smaller and more comedy focused.
Interesting. I would have thought that they would have both gone for the bigger budget. All right.
Yeah, well, with bigger budget comes different set of expectations.
Mm-hmm. Less independence, maybe?
Maybe, yeah. Still, I think you should watch it.
Oh, I will. I haven't watched Ant-Man. I'm behind.
Oh, Ant-Man. That's like last year. That's last summer. That's ages ago.
I know.
There's just too much content to watch. That's why. There's too much good stuff to watch, both in theaters and in the living rooms today.
It's too much.
Our stuff included. There's also Black Mirror Season 3 that just got unlocked on
You love
Netflix.
this show. Yeah.
I love, the first 2 seasons, and I guess you call them series when they were produced over the BBC. They're anthology shows that are basically, they remind me of Twilight Zone stories, but pulled into feature-length stories. And it's all about technology gone awry.
Wait, so they don't interconnect?
They don't.
Oh,
They're
wow.
Anthology shows. Each episode is a whole separate story. Some are very small, some are very big.
I didn't think anyone made that anymore.
That's one of the big appeals of this.
I like it.
Is they have different directors and they can get stars, like movie stars. All of them star movie stars that work in these self-contained stories. I'll give you one. I actually haven't seen season 3 yet because I'm saving it all to watch it once. I believe there are 6 episodes out in season 3 right now. And Netflix unlocks their shows, of course, right? They don't do heavy advertising beforehand. They let word of mouth really help a show succeed, unless it's like a season 2 of Daredevil or something. And season 3 just kind of came out of nowhere, October 21st, unlocked. And from all accounts, it's been really good. For people who have seen seasons 1 and 2, this won't be a spoiler, but let me just set up a premise for one of the shows.
Okay.
So you might like.
How long are these shows?
They're about an hour to hour and a half.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
they differ.
Okay. I think they're about an hour. Not important. One of them's about a husband and wife who the husband dies unexpectedly in an accident. And all these are like set in like indeterminate near future, right? They're set tomorrow. And to cope with the death of her husband, the wife gets a robot surrogate who is molded after her husband, and they data mine his conversations and his whole internet history and his whole digital profile
To try to replicate him?
to feed this robot as a therapeutic tool. and the way that robot performs and behaves, and the way it's written, it plays off of that.
The robot is played by the same actor that
Yes,
died, apparently?
same actor.
I
Yeah.
assume?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So that's one of the episodes, without going into too many spoilers about and they're all dark. None of them resolve really positive. They all like leave you with this weird technology is too much.
The thing about Twilight Zone was they weren't always dark. Like every now and then, 1 in 10, you'd get one that left you
1 in
feeling.
10.
But it was like, yeah, you'd gamble. Like every now and then, you'd leave that show feeling really good.
Twilight Zone for optimists. For the optimists who love to be disappointed.
Are we going to talk about Westworld again?
I just wanted to have you seen it yet?
No.
You still haven't seen it.
No.
So it's your weekly reminder.
I think I might wait till it's all out.
Watch
Binge.
Westworld.
Yeah.
I'm not talking to you, Jeremy. I'm talking to everyone listening out there and those watching. Go watch Westworld. It's so good. First 4 episodes of any show, really, I think give enough time to set up what's going on. And the 4th episode just aired over last weekend. And at the end of episode 4, you got to be all in. You completely bought it. You're bought in after episode 1, but it's huge success. And then in personal pop culture news, I got a puppy.
Pop culture.
Pop culture, that's right.
That's
Culture news.
Wow. So, and what kind of a puppy did you invest
Danica
in?
and I got a Boston Terrier. She's 2 months old. Her name is Ripley. She's adorable, and you can find pictures of her on Twitter.
Wow.
If you follow me.
Married life has begun.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, let's do some catch up because right after we recorded the podcast last week, several things happened. First of all, we did allude to a Tesla event, a major Tesla announcement, according to Elon Musk, that's happening the evening we recorded the podcast. And is this a major announcement?
Yes.
So what they announced was that every car they would make going forward,
starting
with last weekend, would have autopilot as a standard. Autopilot hardware as a standard feature.
Big difference.
Yes.
So but that means that every car going forward is capable of fully autonomous driving.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Using fully autonomous driving,
which no Tesla has right now. I mean, no Tesla has the software support for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have what they know they would need, the hardware they need to do their road trip across country.
Yeah.
Call the car when you're in San Francisco and have it drive to you from New York and have it pick you up 3 days later.
This is awesome. This is huge news. And it obviously that includes the Model 3.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's clear to everybody why the Model 3 has no dashboard. It's an autonomous car. It has the big computer screen, which you can use to relay information to the driver.
What do you mean it has no dashboard?
It doesn't. There's nothing on the dashboard. It's just a big computer screen in the center console. You've seen it, right?
So what do you do with the speedometer? You can drive it.
It's on the computer screen.
But you need to know your speed as you're driving.
It's right there. It's next to you
to
on
your
the screen.
right?
Yes.
Ergonomically, that makes no sense.
And I think that the car is going to be doing most of the driving now. I think I understand why it looks so odd and futuristic.
So because it's coming out in a year and a half.
Yeah.
You think by the time it comes out, the infrastructure will be ready on both their end and the public end.
I do.
To not require for its primary function for the 40,000 people who've bought this car already to not have to drive it themselves.
I think you're right, like around cities.
Exactly.
I who can say? But they move quickly, and I think that autonomous driving is going to be a major feature of the Model 3. Absolutely.
Well, the question for me is, because they're building this hardware in, and it's the hardware they know they'll need for full autonomous driving, this level 4 or 5 autonomous driving, but it won't roll out with that because that's not ready yet in the software side. Are they going to be gathering data and using all their in-production and street-ready cars that they're making starting last weekend to gather the data they need to make this happen?
I mean, you got to imagine they've been doing that since they had all the sensors to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like an extremely hard problem to solve. I mean, it's just unbelievably difficult. And are they even licensing other people's tech for this?
They work with a third-party company, they bootstrap it, but they had parted ways.
That's right. And that's right after that the accident that happened a few months ago.
Mm-hmm. And they were
where the guy hit a truck.
Too ambitious.
So I don't know. I mean, I love that the sensors are in there, and it is just a software problem because that's the main pain point I would think for a lot of people with Tesla. If you buy a car, you don't know when the next update's coming because they don't do those annual cycles. You don't get the 2015 model, the 2016. They just roll out features as they become available internally. So,
But that's not how hardware works either. Like there are going to be better radar systems,
No,
better
you're right.
camera systems.
You're right.
That they will put in these cars. They won't advertise it because they don't want people to think that the car that you bought 2 years ago, the 2-year-old Model 3, is 30% worse, and these are just bullshit numbers, 30% worse at detecting cars in the sunsets with the sun glaring at you than the newest model. They can't advertise that.
But my point is they can release a software update to everybody, and they'll get upgraded from this point forward. They don't have to go back to and have something installed, right?
Physically installed.
Even
that's
if like fully autonomous isn't available for 2 years.
right. I mean, I don't know if I have because the software isn't ready. You can't vouch for the confidence of the hardware right now in that imaginary scenario.
Right. I suppose you're right.
And even the hardware they have currently out in the production model cars, we know isn't sufficient without the software for the for fully autonomous driving. Like they changed up because of those accidents. They changed up how they prioritize the hardware. It's less camera based and more radar based.
That's right.
Anyway, so it maybe only affects those of you who are thinking about buying a Tesla now and maybe didn't want to because it wouldn't have the autonomous feature. If you buy one now, you can just wait, and by the time Model 3 comes out, you'll probably get that feature unlocked with, I don't know how much you'd have to pay, but you'll get some feature unlocked.
They tend to charge for that stuff.
Yeah. Another company that wants to sell you things, well, every company wants to sell you things, but this one's Nintendo, and they don't do it very frequently, but here's their big NX announcement, Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
So by now, you guys know what's in Nintendo Switch. You know it's a 7-inch tablet-like device.
Yeah.
You know it has these controllers that you can stick to the side of it, physical controllers that work wirelessly.
They look like, they're kind of identical, but they're flipped.
Yes.
So they look like nunchucks in a way.
Right, where they have a D-pad and, no, I'm sorry, they have 2 buttons and they have a stick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's actually really smart design because the way you would hold it when they're flipped is that you would have your left hand have your thumb higher up and your right hand have your thumb lower down, which is kind of how the thumbsticks have been designed on many gamepads since the Xbox. So,
but it's versatile. Like that's the trick. Is like
it's a portable system.
Well, it's like it looks like a Wii U in one form, where you just play on a screen and with your hands holding this big screen. Oh, but then you can play it on your TV. Like you plug it into a dock, and suddenly the graphics are on your TV. You can take the little thingamajiggers off the side, the controllers, and play 2-player games where each of us are holding a different controller. So it's, I guess it's like that's the key feature of it. Is just the versatility, and they want you to be able to bring your games with you on the go, the same fidelity that you're playing at home.
It was an announcement that left us definitely with way more questions than answers, and it's a product that's supposed to come out in March. So it's not a holiday release. I mean, it's 6 months between announcement and release. It's not going to compete with your Xbox or your PlayStation. This is really a device to compete with the iPad that parents are buying their kids for video games these days, and maybe even the 3DS.
Why do you think it won't compete with the set-top consoles?
Well, because one, it's an ARM.
You just mean in terms of graphics capability?
Graphics capability and game support. It's not going to be, it doesn't feel like me because it's a Tegra system. Like game developers aren't going to make Call of Duty and then port this over also with the Switch version.
I don't know.
You'll be buying this in addition to the games you'd have for your core gaming needs.
But it does have controller parity, because you can get the Pro controller for it.
Yep.
It doesn't have any kind of special motion sensing that, maybe the Wii has that you could only make for the Wii.
Well, does it have a touchscreen? That's another question.
It looks like it doesn't, right?
It looks like, no, they did not show anyone touching the screen in the trailer, which, like, if it did have a touchscreen, I would think they would advertise it. That limits backward compatibility for them to sell Wii U games digitally to people buying the Switch.
Mainly Mario Maker.
Yeah.
That just seems odd. It seems too weird.
Yeah, and also for people who have, because it is an ARM system now, you would think that they would open up to Android developers and iOS developers to make games to sell on the Switch. But with no touchscreen, you can't.
I don't know, man. I don't think that the processor's been holding Nintendo or the developers back on that. That's just exclusivity and licensing.
It really, I mean, the reason I think that it's not a competitor to those consoles is because people are going to buy this not to buy the AAA games that are cross-platform that you either buy on PC, Xbox, or PS4. They're going to buy this to play Nintendo games.
That's why I always get a Nintendo console.
And that's why you would buy that in addition to your core gaming console.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a supplemental one. So pricing is going to be also a big question. You know, I would hope that would be in the $250 range, but it feels like probably they'll launch at $300. Complete speculation on my part.
That said, though, I mean, if you could buy Rocket League for the PS4 or for the Nintendo Switch, which would you buy it on? You'd get it on the Switch because you could take it on the go. You can't play Rocket League on an iPad.
That's right. Multiplayer is a big thing. They ended that trailer with this competitive play, Splatoon, esports. Illusion that you'd be able to have teams play competitively with this device. But that's not the thing that interests me. The thing that interests me is the ability to split off the controllers and have two people hold the controllers and play with one screen.
Yeah.
The back of the car scenario when you have two kids, or on an airplane when you have two people on an airplane, pop out the kickstand on the Switch, put it on the tray, and use two controllers.
It's true.
And people can play cooperatively or competitively.
Yeah.
Like that's a big social thing that Nintendo has done well. Nintendo, I mean, they've always wanted to do well, even with the Wii U and the asymmetrical gameplay. They want people to play locally together.
Did you have any hopes that it would be a VR device?
No. I didn't think it would be.
I had hopes, but
you had hopes, but I don't think. Yeah.
Oh well. One day we'll see the Virtual Boy come back.
Yeah. I don't think so. So anything else to talk about the Switch? Like the games, they showed some games that look like they did look like ports. Sports, your NBA 2K.
I don't know. The new Mario game. I mean, it's like that's the only ones I care about. Mario and Zelda is pretty much why I get Nintendo consoles. Mario looks nice, and it looks like a Mario World kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah,
3D.
Yeah, we'll find out. I mean, March means there will be no E3 between announcement and release.
Well, that's good. So we'll see new titles announced.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, you think you're on board given what they've shown?
Doesn't matter. Look, I will always play Mario games. I will always have the Nintendo.
Hey, you can play Mario games on your iPhone now.
Not yet.
Soon.
I can get stickers. I can't play the game.
You can get notification.
And by the way, like that, you were gone for that announcement, that podcast, but that was the most exciting thing to me about that entire Apple event was Mario on the iPhone. I'm super happy about that. Yes, I will be buying a Nintendo Switch. I don't know, like, do I keep the Wii U now though because they can't play Mario Maker and other games on the Switch?
Yeah,
I want to know. I do want to know more about backwards.
Right, and then also because it is supposed to be the device, the console that's powerful enough to play in your living room, but also powerful enough, and maybe the most powerful one to take on the road. What happens to 3DS?
Yeah, who knows,
right? If you're going to buy one thing to play Mario Kart on, it's probably gonna be the Switch.
Yeah,
next gen Mario Kart, and you can play that both in your living room and on the go. It's consolidating a lot of that market.
Is the 3DS still an incredibly good seller for them?
I don't know the sales numbers.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah. Also, a big news that dropped in the media world last week, AT&T is going to buy or wants to buy Time Warner. AT&T wants to own Batman and HBO.
That would be a big company.
It would be a massive company. $85 billion to buy the content. Not Time Warner Cable, but to pair Time Warner content, including WB, with their pipes.
This is too big for me to even comprehend.
Yeah.
Is this a bad thing?
I think there are a lot of people who think it is a bad thing. It's just like Comcast buying NBC, except on an even bigger scale. AT&T wants their NBC. And Comcast, since having bought NBC, have they done bad things with it? I don't know because I get that content because I'm a Comcast subscriber. But yeah, it will definitely be scrutinized by the regulators. So they also announced, AT&T, that and this is actually the news that may be most interesting, a over-the-top digital subscription service and pricing. It's called DirecTV Now, and it'll have 100 channels that you can get that you pair with your own internet connection, so you don't have to buy your connection from AT&T, but you can use and watch stuff over on your phone or on an app, and it'll be $35 a month.
Ouch. Wow, that's an expensive service. Huh. And that's a new box?
No, it's an app.
It's an app that can run on
It'll be like
potentially
Sling.
the other boxes?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are a lot of these a la carte services. Sling TV they have about 25 channels, $20 a month, or you can pay more for $40. PlayStation View, and I've seen a lot of ads for that, is $55 a month and has 100 channels, or you can pay for $40 a month. But at $35 a month, and you get content from Time Warner, NBC, Fox, Disney, ESPN, all that stuff, and you can pair it with whatever connection you have. That might be a good deal.
I suppose that does sound like a good deal. I cut the cord and buy a la carte because I don't want all the options.
Mm-hmm.
That just seems like a way to get all the options back over the internet.
Yeah, and which is the intermediate, right? People will cut the cord. I don't think if you add up how much you pay for Netflix, HBO, Amazon Prime, and maybe you pay for like CBS All Access or something.
And maybe the things you purchased, yeah.
Yeah, you're still paying close to $100 a month after your internet connection for all that stuff. And it's not like cord cutting has made things cheaper overall. I think cord cutting has let you buy things like, it's AT&T DirecTV Now, $35 for your base cable stuff, and then choose what premium stuff you want. And there's just more premium content to go around for you to buy. And so you're getting a lot less garbage for what you're paying for. You're still paying a lot, and you're still getting a lot of content, but a lot of content, it's considered in the premium space unless your garbage channels that you never watch.
And no commercials, though, I think crucially, at least in my case.
In many cases, no commercials.
Have they talked about is there a commercial element to this new service?
From my reading of it, no.
They haven't talked, or there isn't one?
They haven't talked about it.
Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if there weren't commercials. Hulu's moving away from that now.
Yeah. Good for them.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a tough business to try to sell. I mean, Hulu makes sense because they want subscription money to pay for the shows and licenses as opposed to running an operation selling ads, which is a tougher and tougher, increasingly tough business to be in. All right, that does it for some of our updates from last week. Before we jump into this week's updates, I want to thank the sponsor of this week's episode of The Selling Test, and that is Squarespace. Squarespace brings us this episode. Whether you need a landing page, a beautiful gallery, a professional blog, or an online store, it's all included with your Squarespace website. Building a Squarespace website is easy with a simple, intuitive process. You just drag and drop elements from their selection of beautiful templates. They have an online store of award-winning templates, customizable settings, all without using a single plugin. You get a free custom domain if you sign up for a year. And also, they have seamless commerce tools and 24/7 customer support. So start your free trial today at squarespace.com and use the offer code TEST, T-E-S-T, simple to remember, to get 10% off your first purchase. Thanks, Squarespace, for sponsoring this week's episode. And let's talk about this week's tech news.
We were already doing that.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
This week's tech news. That was last week's tech news.
Oh, okay. That's good. It's good.
Last week's updates. Now this week's updates. Dealer's choice, Jeremy. Microsoft or Apple first?
Let's go in order of happening. Let's go with Microsoft first.
Oh, you sure you're not going to go in order of things you were interested in, or events that left you feeling more excited?
Yeah, actually, they're pretty on par. They're pretty even. So you actually had the opportunity to fly to the Microsoft event.
Yeah,
all the way over in New York. You would have thought maybe up in Redmond, but no. All the way in New York City, and just for this event, you stayed there for a few hours and you flew back.
Yep.
Was it worth it?
Yes, to get the hands on the new devices.
Cool.
I think if we talk about, and we'll go into specifics, but if we talk about what was the new stuff that was shown, Microsoft's shiny new thing was much more interesting as a concept than Apple's shiny new thing.
You're talking about Microsoft Surface Studio.
Surface Studio.
This is their new PC, which is it's not even really an iMac competitor. It's
not. Well, let's talk about this before we get Studio because there's so much to talk about. Let's go down chronologically. You had a big Windows update announcement. Their next version of Windows 10 is going to be called the Creators Update.
Yeah, so I'm not even sure that I've installed the last one.
Anniversary?
Yeah. So
You can only put it off for so long.
I know.
really.
I mean, it's not that I care. It's just that I'm waiting for Windows to tell me I should do it. But so the creators update interests me a lot more. I mean, just because that sounds more interactive and fun, and I can do stuff with it. But when they got around to demoing what it was, I thought it was a little funny that they would update Microsoft Paint, which doesn't exactly have a Photoshop reputation.
No, and these are things that are the way they talk about their own products is really funny. Like there's so much marketing spin both on Microsoft's side and Apple's side.
Yeah.
That the fun part of going to these events is trying to decipher and read between the lines.
Yes.
When they say Paint is one of the most beloved applications and used by 100 million people's on a regular basis, I read that as, I have fond memories of Paint back when I was 12 years old. What has it done for me lately?
I think
the people using it regularly today probably. I mean, it speaks volumes to how few people don't have access. How many people don't have access to expensive tools and want to use the most basic built-in tool?
No, and that makes perfect sense. And that should be a great tool. But it traditionally just hasn't been. When you see galleries of artwork that's been made with Paint and it's good, that's an amazing thing. You look at those
But
artists,
the fact that's amazing is because of how limiting Paint actually is.
That's what I mean. Like they have this kind of quality to them with the pixels are very rough and bold. Anyway, it's Microsoft Paint and it's fine. But so they're updating it to 3D, so you'll be able to now, you'll be able to draw in 3D. You'll be able to import 3D objects. You'll basically have this little scene, and they're trying to make 3D accessible. They want to open up 3D to people so that there aren't a bunch of tools on the screen, and it's not just overwhelming and confusing, that anybody can dive into computer graphics with the same ease that they could have used Paint before 3D was there.
Right. Just using the name Paint as a way to sell a new 3D tool is it's purely marketing. It's as if they would take Minesweeper and say, they have a new antivirus software, and they're going to call it Minesweeper because it's a beloved brand, and people remember playing Minesweeper.
Right on.
But you're right. It is a way to increase accessibility for 3D modeling. I don't think it doesn't look like a professional modeling tool at all. But what makes it interesting is that it taps into libraries. It's a very basic version of SketchUp.
Well, it taps into the actual SketchUp libraries. What do they call it? 3D something. Where you can get anything. I mean, there are just thousands and thousands of objects in there. I needed a ping pong table, and I type, and bam, it's like there, and it's free, and you just drag it in. So there's just about anything that you'd ever need in 3D now. You'll be able to drag in and rotate and.
Yeah, remix3d.com is the library that they've partnered with, or I think they bought.
Yeah.
And they have tools that will turn 2D drawings into 3D objects, kind of 2.5D style. Also has a Minecraft, the Minecraft tie-in.
Yeah, well, what does that mean? Like, people will be able to draw things or create things in Minecraft
and then export it into this
into
software.
Paint 3D.
Yeah.
And then what, though? I mean, you're rotating it. You
can print it out.
You're printing. You like 3D print it out?
You can 3D print it out.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, but it's not like 3D printers or inkjets yet.
Yeah.
It's not like the same person that knows how to set up and use a 3D printer is using Microsoft Paint.
Well,
that's the disparity.
I think they were very transparent about what their hopes and dreams for this product is that they're banking on 3D modeling, 3D models being an incredible resource when people start interacting with their computers in 3D environments, whether that's with virtual reality, mixed reality, or augmented reality.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you're talking about VR and AR and MR, HoloLens or Oculus Rift, being the ways that you interact with computing environments, the company that's going to give you the world that you can decorate and the world that you can build in and the world that you're familiar with those tools is going to have a leg up on the static world.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're right. And there's a little bit of synergy going on with what they announced later in the show with like the VR spaces and augmented reality and all that. And so I understand that they need people to be able to create 3D content in a way that's accessible to everybody. You don't need 3ds Max or Maya. And so, that's important. That's good. It's just that the 3D printing aspect, that seems like a stretch.
Yeah. So I think 3D printing is maybe less a priority. But if a kid goes into whether it's Windows or the Mac ecosystem and starts building 3D, that's been the promise for years since things like Spore and like modeling, letting kids model in 3D today and save those objects. And maybe 3D printing is one end to that, having the 3D printed object because it's satisfying. But once MR and VR becomes more ubiquitous, being able to model in 3D and then bring those objects into your virtual space, that's going to be compelling.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what else did they announce besides Paint 3D?
Well, along with the VR side, they announced VR accessories for Windows 10 and Windows 10 support for VR, which is tied to HoloLens, really tied to HoloLens.
What does that mean, that Windows 10 supports VR?
It means that I think that the hologram menus that they're making for HoloLens will work in VR spaces.
Oh,
in
okay.
closed virtual spaces.
Okay.
Yeah, because what they demoed on stage was this Holo Tour, which is something they'd be making for HoloLens. It's like a 360 environment, but with 3D buildings and objects in the foreground, surrounded by 360 video. And then also, they had these headsets they announced. So headsets from HP, Dell, Lenovo, ASUS, and Acer.
VR headsets.
VR headsets, $300 with one cable tied to your laptop or PC. They were saying these headsets have positional tracking, inside-out tracking, 6 degrees of movement and freedom. And someone wearing these would then be able to experience and interact with the content they make in those 3D tools and use the menus.
You have to take this announcement with a big grain of salt.
Totally.
Because $300 is not very much money.
Yeah.
Inside-out tracking is like cutting-edge, barely announced by Facebook technology with all the best engineers working on it. Yeah. And Microsoft says they've done it for $300, and the demo that they gave was clearly an animation. Like, it wasn't even the guy's movement that was reflected in the movement.
And he wasn't moving a lot. He was just turning.
Yeah.
Like rotating left to right.
And he was way out of sync with the guy on the screen. It just wasn't, it didn't look like it was at all.
I think that was a real demo.
There was no reflection of inside-out tracking in that demo.
Right, because he didn't actually move around physically. He did rotational.
But the movement of his head would have caught some weird stuff. I mean, like a little bit of natural head movement that was not reflected in that demo.
Yeah, that could also be the modeling, because what we were seeing on that projection was their mapping of the movements with the third party, the MR camera. So they had a tethered camera.
Yes,
filming the way they filmed those HoloLens demos. So that could just be mapped improperly or added latency there.
I was watching the Avatar. There was nothing human about his movements.
Yeah. Well, the bigger question is, even assuming it works perfectly, like assuming somehow they've done it and you have comfortable positional tracking, inside-out tracking with these $300 headsets with no word on their optics, what would be the point of being in that virtual space from Windows perspective?
You can put your favorite apps on the bookshelf.
Okay.
There's room for about 4 apps up there. You saw it.
Yep. You have the menu, your HoloLens floating menu.
The 3D objects that you scan with your phone, which, by the way, was cool.
Yep. So they have like a Autodesk style free app competitor to map 3D objects using photogrammetry on your phone.
That was cool.
Yeah.
It's like, and there's been apps like that for every phone for years now, but they're really, like, if Microsoft's doing it, it's going to be built into the phones, and it's going to be pretty cool. They walked around a sandcastle and scanned it in. It was a nice scan. Then, like, you could put these scans up on
Paint 3D.
You could mock them up, like finish them in Paint 3D, and then put them in your virtual environment. So it's like, it's like The Sims, but it's like you're in the world. Right? And you're populating it with things that you scan.
I think you're going to need a better killer app for your
$300
accessory.
That your other friends scan. I mean, the thing is, it's got, like, the social stuff is what's going to sell this, I think.
Yeah. And they didn't talk anything about the social stuff in the context of this VR demo or the 3D modeling demo.
Yeah.
Which they would need. Like, if they told me that I could watch an NFL game and have other people there in the VR space and really make a play for Facebook, that and say that was going to launch early next year with the creators update, that would be great.
Yeah. Yep.
But and at that price point, that makes them way more accessible than potentially having to spend $800 on a Rift system just to do Facebook VR.
You think it'll be compatible with the Rift and the Vive, right?
Depends how they didn't show any controllers.
Microsoft typically hasn't been about making the first party hardware, especially when it comes to interfaces. I mean, I assume that there will be full support for the other guys.
I hope so. It also seemed like the VR part of this announcement was tacked on to one of their 3 big pillars. It wasn't even a pillar of the Windows 10 creators update that they were talking about. It was just like 3D modeling plus VR, and then also let's talk about gaming and connectivity.
Yeah.
All right, so gaming. This one I found the least interesting. Built-in streaming in Windows 10. Not because I don't think people want to stream their games, and people do. People do. They absolutely do. But because it's tied to their Beam.com streaming service that they bought.
There's nothing wrong with Twitch.
Nothing. It's that they don't own it.
what's wrong for Microsoft.
For Microsoft,
but
exactly.
there's nothing wrong with it from the user's
Exactly.
perspective.
So it's Beam streaming only. It feels like they developed it to bolster this service that they bought,
Yeah.
and it may not be what people want.
If it's cheaper, some people might use it.
Yeah. But you need the audience. You need both it's the chicken and egg for content, right? You need the audience there that's going to be watching it, and you need the creators who are going to be streaming to it. So unless they make a way for you to stream to Twitch and Beam and then build the audience that way and create the incentives there, it's dead on arrival. Yeah. Connectivity. This feature I was warming up to over time after thinking about it. This is a way for them to tie in Skype, mail, messaging all into the Windows desktop. Bottom right-hand corner of the taskbar, you have these icons for your favorite contacts. I didn't say how many you could put there, but it looked like at least 5 or 6. And then you can drag files directly onto those icons or images or folders and share and send messages and jump right into messaging.
Mm-hmm. I suppose that's nice. But what service does it actually use?
I think it's MSN accounts. They're your Microsoft account.
So I'll have the creators update if I have Windows.
Yep.
And then as long as I'm signed into my Hotmail account,
Your Microsoft account.
my Microsoft account, then I can be
Your Xbox account,
available.
Microsoft account. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe it's using. It would be smart if it piggybacked on the back end of Microsoft or Xbox.
See, yeah, that's the trouble. Is it doesn't tie into any kind of phone presence. And if you're going to message me, you want to use my phone because I have that everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it doesn't make as much sense for messaging to me. Maybe it's nice for file sharing between other Windows users.
Right.
The problem is like half the world isn't Windows users now. It just seems like everyone's is buying a laptop and it's all Macs.
Yeah, and you would think that's not been Microsoft's MO. They've been in the past couple of years under Satya Nadella, they've been making services that work across all platforms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm glad to see him innovating.
All right, devices. Surface Book update. So the very high-end Surface Book, their i7 model, now has a new base section, keyboard section. That's where the discrete graphics and the big battery is. Now has even faster discrete graphics. As opposed to a 940M, they've moved to a 965M. Still Maxwell, NVIDIA. They've redesigned the cooling on it, so it's actually a little thicker than the previous Surface. And the keyboard angles up just a little bit for bigger exhaust at the top of the keyboard. And then they've crammed more battery to give it what they claim to be 16 hours of battery life.
This is the Surface Book right here, right?
Surface, yeah.
And you're a big fan.
I am.
What's the battery life on this?
They claim 10. I get really 7 to 8.
Oh, okay. So their claim is good because that's almost double.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So 30% more battery life on this one. The question is, one, they want the mobile part, a 965, so it's not a gaming machine.
Would you expect it to be a gaming machine?
It's still a thin and light. They didn't say how much heavier it was, and when I picked it up at the event, at the showcase afterward, it felt a little bit heavier, not super noticeably heavier. I don't know how many professionals are using the Surface Book for like CAD, like whether this was a necessary requirement, because it's not like they had to redesign the keyboard. They had to actually mill new aluminum bases and do a whole update. And I don't know if the Surface Book is like how many people are buying the top end $2,400 Surface Book right now.
Right. I don't know either.
No, and because especially since the Surface Pro line is the one that's I think the system seller so far. The thing that's been really selling well on the Surface side, their $1,000 Surface Pro.
Okay, yeah, right. That's the cheaper version though. The book is the nicer one.
The book is the nicer one. Has the hard keyboard, has a longer battery life. Splits, has a physical keyboard, which I like. That's not just the type cover. Surface Pro 4, $900. So still same price. They're still not throwing in the keyboard, which I think they should at this point.
Yeah.
And none of these have updated to the latest Intel processors. So that's a little worrisome. All right, Surface Studio.
Wait, and there's also a bit of a wait, isn't there, on the new Surface Book?
Ships in November.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
I thought it was next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Surface Studio.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is cool.
Yeah, so going into it, a lot of the idea of it being an all-in-one had been leaked already. There was that patent that people dug up from Microsoft. I think it's still a product that people didn't expect coming out of it. 28-inch, the thinnest LCD ever made at that size. 12.5 millimeters thick for the LCD, which is that's a centimeter, a little over a centimeter thick, for a 28-inch LCD, touchscreen with the pen, and it works as a drafting table.
And the Surface Dial.
And it has a Surface Dial that we found out later on. It comes free with it when you pre-order it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Lots of modes of input.
okay, so first of all, just speaking from an advertisement standpoint, the ad for this is great. Not the video they showed you guys first, but the ad that they then showed you midway through, which uses music from Willy Wonka, which, screw Microsoft for using my love of Willy Wonka and Gene Wilder to sell me stuff.
R.I.P.
But it worked. It is the best ad I think Microsoft ever made. Have you seen it?
I've seen the ad. Yeah, they played it.
They played it, right?
They played it.
Okay.
They played twice.
And it just hits all these great notes where they reveal that it moves in just the right way. Like, so you touch it and it goes down. They take the Surface Dial and it goes silent, and then boom, it hits the screen, and the graphics come out of it.
Yep.
It's a great ad. I did not expect a great ad from Microsoft. I don't expect great ads from them. I expect them from Apple, and Apple's been dropping the ball. I think this is the best Microsoft or best computer ads in eons.
I think it's the most interesting computer product in eons. Now, whether that's not to say it's a good product. We haven't tested it yet.
Yeah.
But the potential seems to be there. The concept, the design is new, which is the exciting part for me. It's a new take on computing, of desktop computing.
Well, it's for designers. I mean,
it is.
It's not for everybody. This is like a gaming machine is for gamers. This is very much for designers.
And a MacBook, an iMac is for designers also, though, you could say. The high-end iMac is used for video editing. The high-end iMac isn't just used for kitchen computing. The high-end iMac is used by students. The 5K iMac is used as a great Lightroom device.
But this has actual architectural features that lend itself to designing.
Yeah. So it really feels like there's three things about this device. There's the screen, there's the hinge, and there's the computer part. Let's talk about each of those individually.
Okay.
Right. The screen, 28 inches. That's a great size.
Yeah. It's big.
It's big, right? That's important. It's big because you need to be able to use it not just as a computing area for watching videos and web browsing, but also and typing, but also as this drafting mechanism, right?
Like 5K. What is it? What's the resolution?
4,500 by 3,000.
That's very even.
Yeah, it's 3:2. So it's not 16:9.
Yeah.
I love 3:2 aspect ratio.
That's what most cell phones shoot. The aspect ratio of the photos.
The Surface Book is 3:2. Your MacBook Pro, 16:9.
Yep.
And I like having more vertical space. What's interesting, mathematically, there are two things interesting. One is the Surface Book is 3,000 by 2,000, 3:2. That 3,000 sounds familiar because the Surface Studio is 4,500 by 3,000. So it's as if they took the Surface Book, rotated sideways, and you can have two Surface Books side by side. That's very That feels like a very Apple thing they did there, right? Like what they did with the MacBook, the iPad Pro.
Yeah.
The other thing is DPI, and it speaks to a pro and a con, a shortcoming, and its excessive Windows scaling. Do you have a 4K monitor at home?
No, I do not.
Do you have a 2560 by 1440?
Yeah.
16 by 9. Do you run it at 100% scaling, I assume?
Yep.
Windows works relatively well, I think best at 100% scaling. It works okay, mostly great, at integer scaling.
Yeah.
So when you run at 200%, 300%, no one runs at 300%, 100% or 200%. A lot of computers ship these days with 1.5 or 125%, 150% or 125% scaling, because if you have a 4K display or if you have a high-resolution laptop, running it at 100% makes everything too small.
That's like on the Retina displays.
Yeah. And the Retina, and Apple has engineered iOS or Mac OS to scale really well, and all the font rendering, it looks really nice, and they even do super sampling, right?
Yeah. Where they blow things up internally and then down-res them before.
And down-res them so you don't get any dithering. Microsoft doesn't do non-integer scaling great, and that's because a lot of third-party apps you see sometimes like aliasing, because
things get chunky.
Things get chunky, or things look too smoothed out and not great. At this screen, at the Surface Studio screen size, 28 inches, and that resolution, what they actually get is 192 DPI which is 200% scaling.
Okay. So they played within their safety range.
And what that means is that when they demoed that, holding that piece of paper up in front of the screen,
Yeah.
at 96 dpi, at 100% scaling, is when a sheet of paper looks like 1:1. That's what Windows kind of designed for.
Oh, okay.
So at 192 dpi,
They get four
you
times
get
the pixels.
4 times the pixels, but at 200% scaling, you get the 1:1 paper
They
size.
they made a big deal out of the paper matching 1:1 on the
Yeah.
screen. Is that not something that's common?
It's not. You think about that. You know, you don't have it on your Apple computer. Like you're in Google Docs right now.
Yeah.
That sheet of paper is not 8.5 inches.
So I'm at 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
An inch there is not an inch in real life.
Can I set it up to be that way?
You can, and in Windows you can too. There's actually a tool in Windows. If you go to display properties,
Yeah.
your display settings, and there's an advanced display setting where you can scale a ruler left and right,
Mm-hmm.
and you can actually drag it out. So one inch on your screen is 1 inch in real life.
That's just a weird thing to me. I would assume every computer would have a box I could click to make 1 inch be 1 inch in real life.
It doesn't, because everyone makes different size screens at different DPIs.
Yeah, but my laptop knows what screen I have, you know?
But your laptop does,
Yeah.
right. And that's why if like HP is making a laptop and they want to use this, super high resolution display, but they want to pack it in because their supplier has it in a 15-inch laptop size, they would have to do some weird non-integer
Yeah.
decimal scaling
And-
to make that 1:1.
Yep.
And as we just said, that non-integer scaling looks, unfortunately, not great in Windows. So that's how they got to that 28 inches, which I thought was interesting. The screen itself looks gorgeous. The color accuracy.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing I can't tell on a video stream because I'm watching in my 8-bit color range.
Yeah. Full sRGB. They didn't say how close to one for Adobe RGB,
Mm-hmm.
but they have DCI-P3 settings. So different color spaces, you can actually tap that and swap it on the fly
I think that's super
in the
cool.
sidebar.
Because when people are designing, you have to know what it's going to end up looking like.
And you have to design it for the platform that you're going to have
Yeah.
that's going to end up in, whether it's video or a poster print or something, right? So that's neat. I think that's why it's also important that they do 1:1 scaling, because like they said on stage, there is no more print preview. What you're working in
Right.
is your print preview, which I think that's a leap right there, right? Never having to do Control P and seeing what it looks like on the sheet of paper when your tools show you what it looks like on your printed document.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
Still, I mean, like if you're printing the web, you need to know where the cutoffs are.
It's 350 nits, so it's bright, but not as bright as it could be.
It's not that bright, right?
It's not that
Isn't
bright.
the new Apple Watch like 1,000 nits?
Yeah, and 1,000 nits is what you need for HDR. So you can't do full certified HDR on this. And we'll talk about another reason why you can't do playback later because of the graphics card. But it has the pen support.
Right. Does this not?
No, it does.
Okay.
Of course. Like the Surface Book and Surface Pro 4, they have the same N-Trig technology pen support that Microsoft bought a couple years ago.
But this is the first desktop that has it.
This is the first desktop that has it, which from what I believe, and what I've heard is that it's not, that was the big technical challenge. Getting
Why?
pen support at that size.
Really?
Yeah.
It's also touchscreen.
It's also multi-touch screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Because the larger screen you go, the more signal noise ratio goes up.
Oh, interesting.
And
I can understand why it would be hard to keep the screen so thin with
Mhm.
so many interesting sensors in there.
Yeah.
But that's interesting that the size makes a difference.
And they said it has optical bonding, so you don't get that weird parallax effect when you put the pen on the screen. It's a very small distance between the LCD and the actual glass itself.
Cool.
And non-reflective coating, all that stuff. All in all, it just looked like a beautiful screen.
Well,
Like-
more importantly to me, the latency seemed like it was nothing. It was really impressive, at least over video.
So that was the other big question I asked the engineers there. I wanted to know whether anything had changed with the latency for the pen. Because last year when I reviewed the Surface Book, I thought it was great latency too. I love the feeling of the Surface Pen. They have that soft tip nub, so it didn't feel like plastic on plastic. But once the iPad Pro came out, I think iPad Pro kills the Surface in terms of responsiveness. And maybe not latency, but in terms of refresh rate. They do 60 hertz refresh, so it feels like immediate.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like the Surface Studio got to iPad Pro levels.
Okay.
And I don't think anything's changed from last year.
In terms of the latency or in
The
terms of the frame
responsiveness.
rate? The
Yeah.
responsiveness. So
Yeah.
if I draw really quickly, there'll be almost like a trailing effect?
I think what you did see on the screen was like a vector. They convert anything you draw into vectors in most of the apps.
Okay.
Yeah, so it looks smooth. And I don't think it's a trail that you would notice in the naked eye, but artists who work really fast may notice.
Okay.
Like the artist I talked with when we did the Surface Book review last year said the Wacom had great latency, and everyone who used the iPad said that's been the best so far in terms of responsiveness and feeling like a real pen. And we'll have to put this studio in front of actual artists, but it didn't seem like they revamped that at all.
And it's the same pen?
It's the exact same pen.
So there's no angular sensitivity or anything?
No angular sensitivity. It doesn't know the orientation of the pen. The buttons that are on the pen still aren't programmable.
Mm-hmm. And where's the pressure sensitivity take place? On the screen or the pen?
The pen.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the screen part of it. The hinge is the other big engineering challenge, it sounded like. They had one of these, the Surface Studios there with like a cross-section.
Yeah.
Like they showed the internal hinge part of it. And it's like a 2-axis hinge, right? There's 2 places. It's like a V. Those hinges have to work together. So you can't rotate it and have it float in midair horizontally. When you move one, it has to move the other, and that's how you get the rigidity. So it stays put at any angle
Cool.
that you have it at.
But it's also very easy to move, right?
Yeah, you grab the side and you just move it down. It doesn't go flat. It goes up to 20 degrees.
Yeah, that kind of surprised me because I can imagine that breaking. If it's at that slight angle, like 15 degrees up, and I'm drafting and I'm just losing myself in the work, and I lean on that screen, is that hinge going to be able to take that weight?
Yes.
Okay.
They said the hinge will take the weight, and because like my fear was like, okay, you're going to crack the screen if you put much weight on it.
Right.
Right? That's a big, expensive piece of glass.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And no one at the showcase wanted to like put their weight on it. I don't know how artists, like everyone works differently. I don't know who's going to, like solid wood drafting tables are super sturdy. You can put a lot of weight on that.
Yeah.
So I imagine they must have tested some weight limitation, but it's also a giant piece of glass, and no one has drafting tables that are just giant pieces of glass floating on these specially designed hinges. So it's a little bit unproven territory. The last part of it is the computer, the mini computer, and this is the part that I think may throw everything off.
It's the base of the computer.
Yeah,
It's what
small.
the hinges connect to. It's at the bottom. It looks like an old school Apple TV.
That's right, exactly. Yeah. You have a quad-core processor there. It runs a mobile NVIDIA chip, a 980M Maxwell, not Pascal.
Everyone's running these old chips.
Yeah.
Huh.
980s, I mean, 10 series has been out for a couple months now. I'm shocked there was no 10 series here. 2 terabytes of storage with...
Is that a cooling factor, you think, or power reasons?
No one knows. My guess is that this is something that's been in development for years, and NVIDIA maybe just wasn't available.
Yeah.
And so when you get to a point where you're several years into development, you've designed a cooling system, which is not easy, and a chassis for this computer.
And importantly, it has the power supply built in.
Yeah, and you have this power supply of 270 watts, but then so you have the thermal load that you want to max this out at for that cooling.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, you can't just say, let's just swap the Maxwell chip for the Pascal chip and solder that on and have it work. They'd have to have a new physical design, and maybe they just didn't have it in time. The screen has built-in microarray for Cortana.
Yeah. I mean, when I hear microarray, I hear Amazon Echo.
Yeah.
Is it that good?
Well, there's 2 questions there. One, is the microarray good enough? And 2, is Cortana good enough?
Yeah.
Like, I would be more interested. I don't care if the microarray is good enough. If I can tap into Cortana or Alexa, that's what I want.
It's about the sensitivity, man. I mean, it's like the Echo has not just a microwave in one direction.
Yeah.
They have it all around the top of the thing. It's a big circle and face any direction in the room. If the mic's on the front of the computer, it's not picking up anything more
But
than
it's not about, I mean, people,
180 degrees.
Where you're going to set up a drafting table is never going to be in the center of an island in your kitchen. It's going to be in the corner, the wall of an office. So you're really only going to need a good microarray for the front. And then, so the computer there that's built in, 32 gigs of RAM, has speakers built in. There was a headphone jack in the back.
32 gigs stock for the 3,000 bucks?
8 gigs up to 32.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Palm rejection on it. So The back has SD card slot. There's DisplayPort out. No Thunderbolt 3, which was surprising to me, and a bunch of USB. No power brick, of course. Like, I don't think this is I get why they didn't put a power brick on the cord. That's a very Mac and Apple decision. But this is not a device I'm going to move around physically and lift up and move around the office or home.
Oh, you don't want a power brick. Why are you asking for a power brick?
If the power brick, like, maybe I'm not asking for a power brick. I'm asking that I didn't need them to make the computer portion of it so small and so sleek.
At the expense of power?
At the expense of power.
Although it did seem like a pretty powerful machine. They quoted a 3D mark. Why would they quote a 3D mark unless it was impressive?
It's 980M, and maybe that's all you need to drive video processing at 4500 by 3000 resolution.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as people who are buying PCs always want more, and they want the expandability option. If you had Thunderbolt, you could then put an external GPU on this if you needed to.
I don't see anyone buying this computer that's not an artist using it for that reason.
I think if you're just an artist, if you're an artist and you make money,
yeah,
and you with your art, $3,000 is not a ton of money to justify for something that's going to change the way you work and really improve your art.
And from what I've seen, they're lusting after this product
because the Wacom's are $2,500 to $3,000, but Wacoms have the things that some artists really want, with the orientation detection, with better pressure sensitivity, with the buttons, the shortcuts on screen. But those Wacoms don't look nearly as good as a display as the Surface Studio.
28 inches, man.
Yeah, and 28 inches.
And a nice display.
Yeah. The thing that I felt was lacking, and you can't ask any company to do everything. Like, Apple hasn't done everything. But the things I could see that could be improved in this is, one, I just wanted to see the display and hinge sold by itself as a separate accessory.
Oh, and just the computers, you take an HDMI in or something like that?
With a Thunderbolt in or something.
Yeah.
Like, that's a $2,000 accessory right there that I think artists would jump at. If they have their existing workload and existing computer system that they could put, and if they're a video editor and they needed an octa-core system, they need all the RAM, they could build that themselves and then plug it in to this hinge system and this beautiful display. That's a dream. Two, and it ties into them not having upgraded the pen, I wish you could use more than one pen on this.
It's back to your first point. I mean, it's going to be an interesting problem when people still have this display that
they can't upgrade.
That they can't upgrade.
They
right?
can't
Exactly.
upgrade.
Like, the display is going to be pretty good for quite a while.
Yeah.
I can't imagine this display is going to, give anybody any trouble in the near future.
You can't upgrade it, and it's and you're locked. Yeah, you're locked into 6th gen Intel, and the point I was making is that there's no collaboration on this on the device itself. A screen that big, you would think that they would support more than one pen input.
Well, it could potentially do that. I mean, with some sort of software update, just like they could potentially release a new pen that does angular detection.
Maybe. Yeah, that's a good point. The dial. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing that got me, because that's new.
That's new. So it's a dial that works, that putting that dial on the Surface
Yeah.
and getting the on-screen, that only works on the Studio.
What is that? Well, yeah, you mean it wouldn't work on this?
You can buy the dial and it would work with any Windows 10 PC as a dial on your table.
Mm-hmm.
You
For
don't get the
software that
on-screen.
supports it.
For software that supports it. Windows 10 is a piece of software that supports it.
Oh, cool.
So it has built-in native Windows 10 shortcuts that you can program. I got to see the menu.
Cool.
And if you update to the latest version of Windows 10, the APIs are all there apparently already. So you can have things that will preset to undo or, Control Z, Control C.
It seems like you press something and a menu comes up in the center of your screen, and then you can choose what you want.
What you didn't see is that there's haptic feedback on the dial too.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, and it feels good.
No.
It
Like what?
feels
Like you can feel
real.
clicks or
You can
something?
feel clicks.
What?
Yeah. And you can sometimes you don't want the clicks.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just
smooth,
want so
like when you're playing.
it's app dependent.
Is it Tempest compatible?
So the thing that they wouldn't tell me is how many degrees of clicks, because it's a pretty big dial, right? With that big of a dial.
Wait a minute. It doesn't spin forever?
No.
What?
No.
It's not a 360-degree forever spin.
Oh no, it is. It's not smooth. It's not fast spinning.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
there's a difference
yeah,
between fast.
There's friction.
There's friction.
Okay, yeah.
It goes 360, but there's no free spin, freewheel. So you couldn't use it for Tempest for that reason.
Yeah, right.
You could do that.
All right.
But they wouldn't tell me how many degrees of accuracy you get. Is it like half degree, third degree?
I don't know.
Right?
The ad makes it look pretty accurate. I mean, like pretty sensitive.
But the degrees they had, the virtual meters there were all like 360 degrees at most. And at that radius, Like 360 degrees is not that much. It's a lot of
Okay.
movement
Okay.
between each degree.
Anyway, I liked when you put it on the screen, it came alive.
Yes.
That's like the Surface dream. They've been pitching Surface since it was a
Mhm.
coffee table.
Yeah.
And they've always done this. Like there's
Yep.
been bartenders that put your drink down
Yeah.
and you can reorder it or stuff like that by this thing that appears around the objects. So now that's finally like really out there.
And it was low latency. It was like immediate. They had all these different applications in the demo area, from animation tools to drawing tools,
Yeah.
and people were just like putting things on, and music tools, and
It's really, it's very cool.
like imagine if you're an app developer and they made an app where the different parts of the screen activate different shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like being a doctor and you're putting a stethoscope and you're just like
yeah, right.
just adjusting things physically. Yeah,
And how does it stick to the screen?
just friction.
Is it rubber underneath?
A little, it's rubberized. I don't know if it's exactly rubber.
And there's some
It's
sort of,
some type of,
what senses what when you put it on the screen? Do you know?
that I don't know. I think it's just like the pen. It's using the N-Trig technology.
Okay.
That's my guess.
And it lines up really well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I want to use it.
I know. It's expensive, $3,000 for the Surface Studio.
But only the one SKU, right?
And no,
Oh, no?
it goes up to 4,200.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's expensive.
yeah,
That's old school. That's like 1987 prices.
yeah. It's $3,000 for the Core i5 version, 8 gigs of RAM, not that much storage. So it gets really expensive really fast. Yeah, that's why I go back to really wanting this product as just the display and the hinge. Like, remember the Cinema display,
Yeah, dude.
right? Cinema display was what, $2,000 when Apple released that, the 30-inch monitor.
How much was it?
$2,000.
Oh, my God. Oh, I thought I was going to say 1,000.
No way. 30-inch 30-inch monitors haven't been $1,000 not for the past, not since before like past 3 years, 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, they sold this for $2,000, just the screen. That'd be instant buy.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
And you got to imagine, like for a while there, you could turn your iMac into a screen.
Yeah.
It would take, I forget, was it like FireWire input or something?
Mhm.
It could become a second display, and it's how
Yep.
a lot of people use their old computers. So I wonder if that will be something you can do with this.
I don't believe you can do it. Think about the ports. It's DisplayPort out, not in.
What about the USB-C?
There's no USB-C.
There's not?
No USB-C. USB 3.
Oh, boy.
No Thunderbolt 3. Right?
Uh-oh.
Like
Okay.
if they'd future-proofed it, and that's a really good point. Like maybe that's something they haven't announced, but I don't think it's technically possible. If you could buy this, the lowest end SKU, the $3,000 SKU, and later on plug your own computer into it and use it as a display,
Yeah.
that'd be at least a little more future-proofing.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. This would make a really cool monitor.
All right. Well, we're gonna hopefully get to test it. Let's go to Apple. Oh my God, there's so much to talk about.
Apple had an event too?
Apple had an event too.
How long ago?
2 hours ago.
4 hours ago.
4 hours ago.
Yep. It wasn't that long. It was an hour and a half.
Yep.
No big surprises. Well, wait.
Apple TV.
Apple TV did have a surprise, a new app called TV. And that was exciting at first because we all thought, oh, they've partnered up with the TV stations.
Finally.
It's going to be live TV, DVR style on your Apple TV. But unfortunately, it wasn't that. It was more of an aggregator for all of the TV content that you already have in your other apps.
Video content.
Yeah. And Siri, as you made a point while we were watching it, already does that very well, where you ask to watch, whatever. What are you going to watch? Cheers? And you say, where can I watch Cheers? And it will show you all the options you have to watch Cheers.
iTunes first.
And Siri does a great job at that, but there's really no visual way to browse that content. So I guess this is what that need that's filling.
Yeah.
Will Smith, he tweeted that he thinks it's a great idea, that it's huge.
Because the question is, how many people knew that Siri did that in the first place? Even though Siri was the flagship feature of Apple TV.
Yeah, I mean, I bet there's people who don't even use Siri.
Right.
Because
Right.
they
just browse, they just dig into the apps,
Yeah.
and they're stuck in the app. Like Apple has the data. They
Mhm.
know whether people actually dive into apps and explore that way,
Of course.
or if they need that front end. And it sounds like they do.
So that's good. I'm curious to see how this affects their relationship with the TV content producers, because I guess that's not been as good as Apple's wanted it to be, or we'd see more TV services like live TV. But we'll see. There's going to be a way to get better placement in this TV app, I imagine. So they'll be cozying up to some of the content producers, I imagine.
Then also the new Macs. Here we go.
Just MacBooks, right?
MacBook, that's right. The
Just
new MacBook Pros.
Yeah.
Actually. 3 new MacBook Pros. 2 13-inch, 1 15-inch. Weird product segmentations. What matters most to people are maybe it's going to be the 13-inch and the 15-inch that have this touch strip.
Yeah.
As rumored, as leaked, a OLED touch strip at the top with a Touch ID sensor at the far right and an active display that can display shortcuts, other data, visual data.
It's a display.
It's a display.
It's a multi-touch, full-color display that replaces all of the function keys across the top of your keyboard, including escape.
Yeah. Now, no haptic feedback on this touch strip.
Yeah, I was not surprised by that. I would love to see it, but whatever. There's no haptic feedback on any display yet. So.
Yeah, there is.
What?
The iPhone.
There's no haptic display on that. No, I mean there's a
Taptic.
That's hardly used for the screen. That's just used for pressing the home button and getting notifications. I'm never touching something on the screen and feel like getting any kind of feedback back.
Wait, the keyboard. Not.
Does that use the taptic feedback?
It doesn't, but you can jailbreak it and you can get keyboards that get taptic feedback.
We're not talking about the jailbreak world.
But it feels just like the taptic engine is good enough to simulate the pushback of a key.
A little
click.
Just a little something.
Yeah.
I will, jailbreak your Mac because it's got a taptic engine in there. I'm sure they could make your Mac
But
rumble.
the taptic engine is underneath the trackpad.
Yeah,
and the trackpad is bigger in this one.
Yep.
I don't know.
Maybe
someone's going to have to take apart the new MacBook Pros, but I'm a little disappointed there is no taptic. I'm disappointed this whole idea in general. It really feels like a cop-out for them not having a touchscreen on their Mac.
It does totally feel. Well, is it a cop-out? I mean, they could have done a touchscreen. They obviously don't want to for some reason. Oh, they're misguided. They are misguided.
Why?
As I always say, every 10-year-old thinks Macs are broken because they don't have touch
touchscreens.
The freaking
That's
screen.
right.
And they're gonna come around to this because somebody in there is gonna knock some sense into them.
You think it's political? Who knows?
I don't know.
Whatever. Let's talk about the product for what it is.
It's so the touch, the touch strip they're calling it. It's interesting. I mean, you can perform a full DJ session using it. So, it's cool to see a little strip above your keyboard come to life. I mean, I gotta admit, it's sexy.
But as you pointed out when we were watching the live stream, all of the shortcuts, everything they had on the strip was on screen and could be solved with that screen being touchable.
Well, if we were touching about the product that it isn't, we would talk about that. I don't know. So I guess the pitch is like your hands are down here on the keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
You're using the mouse.
Yep. You're using the touchpad with your thumb.
You don't want to obscure the monitor with your fingers and put fingerprints on your beautiful screen. So you move the least amount of space, and you're just keeping down there. And you can do interesting, and this is potentially cool, multi-touch stuff. So you're using the mouse and the touch strip at the same time in artistic apps, like to move the mouse as well as to control its size, right? That kind of thing. That's potentially cool. The neat thing is it's a screen, so we're gonna see it evolve.
So here's the fundamental difference between a touch screen and this touch strip, because the touch strip itself isn't a representation of something on the screen. It's not a cursor. So, for example, on a touchscreen laptop, you're not using both your finger on the screen and a mouse or a trackpad at the same time because they represent the same thing. Even when you're just doing scrolling, what you're doing on the screen is this one-to-one, which is what the mouse does, a one-to-one tracking of movement. When you have those controls put on a separate touch bar, whether it's shortcuts or sliders or even images, you're accessing a whole different level of control that's outside of what's being shown on the display. Now, whether or not applications and people want to work that way is a big question.
I mean, you could do that already with the keyboard, but you're dealing with 101 binary keys.
Exactly. Yeah. So whether or not being able to scrub through photos or even a video edit timeline makes sense, or if in the workflow, because I know people, for productivity purposes, you want to move your hands physically as little as possible. Like people love keyboard shortcuts, just use keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah.
And if I have my hand on the mouse, I don't want to be lifting up and touching another thing and then moving another thing. I want everything to be within reach of where my hands are naturally. Maybe it's not a product for the professional users. It's called the MacBook Pro, but The MacBook Pro 13 for the longest times only had the dual core processor and in built-in Iris graphics.
I think Apple has taken its eye off the pro user since they abandoned Final Cut 7. And they're all about the mass market now.
Pro in the sense that these are people who buy these computers for this one purpose, their jobs, and make money on these tasks.
Yeah. I was disappointed to see no USB 3 jacks. Now, maybe I'm living in the past, but I use my MacBook Pro for very specific reasons. They have to, and I plug a thermal printer into it every day in order to print out postage labels. And now I'm going to have an adapter for that. And lo and behold, there's only 4 USB jacks, and they're all USB-C. What do they call them?
Type-C?
No. What is Apple's rebranded it?
Thunderbolt?
Thunderbolt 3.
Thunderbolt 3.
Right? They call it. And it does not ship with an adapter.
No, that's right.
So you have to get third-party adapters. There's no way to charge your freaking iPhone on the new MacBook Pro.
If you go to an Apple store, you buy a new MacBook Pro, and you buy an iPhone, you cannot connect them together.
To charge whatever.
Just wirelessly.
So there's going to be some adapter selling. And thankfully, Norm brought to my attention I could buy the $20 adapter on Apple.com, or I could go to Amazon and get 2 of them for $6. So that's what I did. So I can plug in my printer to my laptop. I need an adapter. Thank you, future.
They got rid of MagSafe. They got rid of the SD card slot.
Phil Schiller said, but any of these 4 USB-C jacks can be used to charge your computer.
Not all 4 at once.
Which, I mean, honestly, that's actually quite a lot of current to run in through one of those jacks. So I'm impressed just technically by that, but not practically.
The thing I'm puzzled by is that the end of the announcement, they had another MacBook Pro, one without the touch strip, that would compete. They said this is the one to buy if you were thinking about buying a 13-inch MacBook Air. 11 inches gone now. 13-inch MacBook Air, or you can get upsold to this MacBook Pro, which is thinner, lighter, better in almost every way, better screen.
Yeah.
But won't have the touchpad and is a little cheaper than the Pro with the touchpad.
Why does the Air exist now?
Price. The affordable Mac product is $1,000 at 13 inches.
Uh-huh. And it's substantially less powerful than the new MacBook Pro?
I think it's the same processor.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So look at the lineup now. There's the MacBook Air. You got to look at it from pricing, right? There's $1,000 gets you a MacBook Air 13-inch it's the only Mac right now with no Retina screen. It's the Chud Mac.
Well, apparently there's still a MacBook too.
Well, that's the upgrade. From MacBook Air 13, you go to MacBook, and MacBook is a premium product because that's expensive. 12-inch MacBook, the future of the Mac, butterfly keys, right? That one starts at $1,300.
$1,300.
$300 more for
What?
12-inch because of size, because
This is
portability.
just weird. These are too close in price.
But portability is the premium here. Now, what about, this is the thing that throws it all out of whack, 13-inch MacBook Pro, new 13-inch MacBook Pro, that's in between sizes of MacBook Pro, MacBook 12-inch and MacBook Air, right? How much is the 13-inch MacBook Pro, the one on the far left?
$1,500.
Wow. Yeah.
So I don't know. As these are just way too close in price to me. The fact that there's 3 MacBook lines has always confused me. The Air should have gone away a year ago, in my opinion.
But then
the Air was the executive computer. It was made when laptops were thick and they had CD-ROM drives.
And now the MacBook 12-inch, just MacBook, is the executive computer.
Exactly.
12-inch
any of
display.
them could be because they're all super
No
thin
real
and light.
computing.
Now there should be one freaking line of MacBooks, and they should go from whatever they
Size?
want, 1,000 to whatever they want.
But they can't do that because then the consumer thinks that the smaller one should be cheaper.
It would be.
No, but it's not, because smaller is actually tougher to build that, and they want to make small a premium.
What do you mean small? Do you mean like screen size small?
Screen size and physical size. The 12-inch MacBook is the smallest thing they make in the Mac line, and it's $1,300 because it's the executive's notebook.
Oh, I see what you mean. And you're paying for the actual compactness of
You're
that.
paying for the compactness.
Okay. Well, okay.
Or
that's
what
weird.
they want you to pay for.
It still is confusing me. I think they could at least narrow it down to 2 Macs. I think if Steve Jobs were around, he would come back and he would simplify this for people. It's just too many different SKUs and very close in price.
and they need $1,000 laptop because most students, I mean,
Yeah.
it's still an expensive computer when you talk about buying a laptop. You can get you can get a Surface Pro 4, which I think is better than the MacBook Air 13 for $900. Pay the $130, get the Type keyboard. You're gonna have a better experience on the Surface Pro 4 than you're gonna have on the 13-inch MacBook Air.
One thing that they did not announce with they announced a lot of SDKs for third parties in order to incorporate the touchpad into their apps. They did announce Safari compatibility, but they didn't announce any kind of SDK for JavaScript or web developers.
Yeah.
And I do not use the calendar app and
No, I use Chrome.
mail app. I use Chrome. I use the web for everything. And even if I use Safari, I want web developers to be able to take advantage of this new touchpad.
Yep.
And that's crucial to me. Like that's where I'm going to be using the computer almost all the time. So I hope that is forthcoming. I hope that that's going to be something that is just not that maybe that's too geeky and technical to reveal in the talk like this. But
whoever has the first Schiller interview, Tim Cook interview afterward, please ask that question.
Yeah.
Open standards, please.
I want to be able to, access that and draw to it in JavaScript or somehow when I'm making my website.
Yeah.
Expand the interface to it.
Yeah. We don't just need emoji shortcuts.
Anything else? It has a headphone jack, thank God.
They didn't mention it at all. They hate it so much.
Yeah, they do. They want to get rid of that.
They hate it so much.
They want parity with their iPhones.
Yeah. Okay, we're running a little short on time.
Oh, there's Touch ID.
Touch ID, which is it's great. I think the feature, the ability to switch between users profiles just by touching.
Yep.
That's smart. That's something that needs to happen on the desktop side too, on the iMac side. And you speculated, when will we see maybe a keyboard accessory with the touchpad and Touch ID?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see that for iMacs.
Yeah, for families that share iMacs, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Is there a shortcut right now that you can do?
To switch users?
Yeah.
Well, it's not that hard. You just go to the upper right and click. There's got to be a shortcut. We just click to drop down.
Okay. Touch ID would make it even simpler. Of course, then you're just giving your children's fingerprints to Apple.
And I got to tell you, like, the logging in with the watch is cool, but it actually takes longer than I'd expect because things have to wake up when you lift the lid. So the Touch ID is going to make for a faster login.
Yeah. Let's quickly jump through the rest of the news. Other Apple-related things. We talked a couple weeks ago when Apple announced and released the iPhone 7. What's going to happen next year would be an anniversary edition. There's a lot of arguments that it won't be an anniversary edition, that Apple isn't nostalgic in the same way, that they're not saving any technology to release next year. There was like a Robert Scoble post that he thought that his sources said the next iPhone would be this perfectly clear iPhone that you drop into a headset. And that's not going to happen. Batteries are not clear. There's no chance batteries will be clear. You can see through a screen completely like that. Doesn't make sense. There was a new phone on the Android side that does have a ceramic back, the Xiaomi Mi Mix, that has edge-to-edge screen on 3 sides and only a small bevel on the bottom of it. People are going crazy over this phone. It does have a ceramic back, but it's exactly not the kind of ceramic phone that Apple would make. And there's this great post. Did you see this? Did you read this post about why Apple will not make a ceramic phone?
They made a ceramic watch.
Right, and our speculation is, well, if the new Apple Edition phone, Apple Edition watch is ceramic, and they're experimenting with ceramic materials, would the phone possibly be ceramic? And the argument against a phone being ceramic is heat dissipation and also cellular signals. You need to have all those problems solved. And the bigger argument against Apple making a ceramic phone, and this is from the Atomics Delights blog, is just because that's going to be changing their complete manufacturing line, their milling aluminum line. They have warehouses upon warehouses making millions of phones, 1 million iPhones per day at peak capacity. To set up a manufacturing line to change all of that from milling aluminum and and making aluminum phones to ceramic phones would be a huge logistical setup.
Presumably, it would be a premium phone. Like, it wouldn't just be their iPhone line. That would be too expensive.
Well, the argument against that them making an iPhone edition phone is marketing. Is that you can buy the iPhone right now, and it is a relative premium phone. It's an $800 phone, but you can buy it and know you get the best phone in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, best Apple phone.
Sure,
and
but
so
I can get an Apple Watch for $300, but the ceramic one's over $1,000.
That's right. So I don't know. It's pure marketing.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait. That's just speculation, and we'll have to wait until next year. Last couple of quick things. Google Pixel has sold out. Google said there's higher demand for Pixel than they anticipated, but they've also, on the flip side of the other business, they've pulled back their fiber rollout. So no Google Fiber rolling out into major cities.
Don't say that.
Yeah, it's not going to be as wide release as we originally hoped. On the Amazon side, they're bringing Alexa to Fire tablets. Push down button.
Yeah, this is cool. But more importantly, for people who already own Alexa, it now becomes a display for the device. So when you make verbal queries, it now just automatically reflects some of the information that she provides you, which I think is kind of neat. Because Fire tablets are so inexpensive. You could potentially just get one to have in the kitchen or wherever you have Alexa. So if you ask for recipes or song information or something.
I think some type of visual feedback is something that we're missing from all these voice interfaces. Not as an essential part of it, but as a complementary thing for accuracy or also to display information that's not best fed back to you audibly.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you want an image or something
Exactly.
like that. So does it work now with the Alexa app on my phone?
I don't know.
Okay, or probably just Fire tablets.
Yeah, I think it's just
now.
Fire tablets. That's it for technology news. We're going to skip forward to, do we have time for a VR minute this week?
It's not long.
All right.
The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
Let's keep it actually to 1 minute this week. We're doing Foo live at this Saturday at the live show. And what that means is Will is going to bring Adam and I into virtual reality, into a virtual representation of the cave to record our podcast, Still Untitled. We're going to do that in a couple different ways. We're going to have avatars. We're going to have things to talk about. It's going to be a great segment. And we did test of it in the office earlier this week, and it is awesome.
And people who will be able to download this later and actually watch it in VR?
That's the hope.
That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. So if you can't make it, you'll be able to see it there. I'll say from testing, one of the weirdest things about using Foo VR so far is doing multiplayer in VR in real time. So we're mapped perfectly. So if you're wearing headsets and I'm wearing headsets, I see you in VR, but you're in the same place in the real world as I see you in the virtual world. That is weird and cool. That's about a minute of VR. And
No.
that's the VR. No.
Abduction's getting released in VR finally. That's the myth. That's the Mist Riven guys. They released a new app.
Yep.
Like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Like the VR thing got cut the day the game came out. Well, now 2 months later, it's actually in.
All right. Abduction for VR. That's a minute of VR. Let's move on to what we've been testing.
Testing this week.
Hey, what have you guys been testing?
Oh, thanks for asking. I got a book in the mail called The Art of Atari. And I ordered it a long time ago. I said, well, yeah, I like Atari. I actually had a 2600. You probably didn't, did you?
No.
And I liked the artwork a lot. I always did. It's, didn't even really compare. A different game entirely than the actual game graphics. Game graphics are, as you know, 2600 were just terribly blocky and required quite a bit of imagination in order to, play. But the artwork on the covers were hand-painted and gorgeous. Did a lot to communicate the vision that the designers had despite the technical limitations. And I thought it would be a picture book, but this is a great book filled with deep information, research about the different artists who worked at Atari or freelanced for Atari, interviews with people from Nolan Bushnell down the line, and just great graphic design. The book is actually made by a graphic designer. The whole thing is just cover to cover beautiful, and the restorations that they did are top notch. Just full page, full spreads of just the asteroids artwork, Missile Command stuff that just brings back quite a lot of memories. And I'm a huge fan. I'd check it out. There's two versions of it. There's like a limited collector's edition, and then this is the normal one. Normal one's great. Check it out, Art of Atari.
I have that book as well. It was one of those books that you pre-order on Amazon, and it actually was cheaper when it finally shipped. Like saved $7.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Really, really well designed, and a lot of games that I had no idea existed, and now I could experience it through the art, which maybe is better than playing the games at some points. Yeah. I've been using the iPhone 7 portrait mode. So 10.1 was released out of beta this week, but still in beta is the new portrait mode. Only works with the iPhone 7 Plus. It's like the feature that's supposed to sell it, because I've been so far disappointed with just the second camera, taking photos at 56 millimeters. But now you can take it at 56 millimeters with the depth blurred out a little bit. When it works, it feels like magic. But what's yet to be determined is exactly the place where it fails and where it works, and whether in daily use and common use, if it fails or succeeds more often than the other. So far, it's about 50-50.
Always be testing, Norm.
All right. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week. I don't think Kishore's going to be joining us, but we'll have a third guest, and we'll recap and talk about more stuff. If you have a question about any of the products that we talked about, please put it in the comments, and I'll answer them as best I can. But we got to get back to preparing for the live show, and we'll hopefully see you this Saturday at the Castro Theater, 7 p.m. in San Francisco. Tickets are still on sale, so we'll hopefully see you then. And we have an outro now. This one's from...
Justin, a.k.a. Speed.
All right. See you guys next time.
Go. Take it away, Internet.
Do.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
I just knock on someone's door, put my hand out and shake it.
Look, motherfucker, I'm Norman Chan.
Test it.